So here we are. I guess we're officially in a new season of our podcast. And I think it's kind of a special one because the first season after this announcement of the new Stargate series, which kind of happened towards the end of our last season. And so we have a lot of cool stuff planned since I think people will be very much into rewatching and like re-engaging with Stargate, even people that haven't engaged. And there will also be people coming to the show that I guess haven't. I've heard a lot of people suddenly interested in it. It's being
Yeah.
offered on platforms, so that's really cool. Um, for this episode, I thought it would be kind of cool, especially it's right after New Year's, to kind of talk about like the new starts and things that were kind of rewritten and overwritten in Stargate. And is interesting because I have to say, when they first announced a new show, one of the things people always wonder is it going to be a reboot or are they going to retcon anything? And they did announce this is a continuation and not a reboot. But I was kind of looking into all of like episodes where something was kind of, rewritten, kind of like time travel things or things where something happened and then was kind of erased. And it's interesting that I found several episodes, but um, actually, in Stargate, there was never really, and maybe somebody will correct me, but I really looked and there was not really huge plot points that were retcon, that were kind of
Mhm.
overwritten, which I think is actually kind of special. And so, I mean, maybe before we even talk into some of these specifics, I personally find that really fascinating because in most shows, a lot of times there's something that will be because either showrunners change or people will want to do something, or something was working in the beginning and it didn't work later. And so they kind of rewrote it. And I know there's things that kind of, you know, don't get mentioned again, or maybe they were important to the plot in the beginning and they become less so, especially from season one on. But in terms of grand rewritings of things, there just isn't. And I think that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly something like I never like really I mean, I've told you I was always confused by the term retcon. I was just like, what is that? And then you explained it to me that, but I find like I don't know if it's just because of how I am when I watch stuff, especially if I've only like watched something once or maybe twice. It's kind of like I'm in the moment of it and I don't always notice like that there is something like that that happens later on where like something they maybe brought up earlier is then like erased. Um, but I'm pretty sure there must have been times when I've watched things where that's happened and either I didn't realize or if I were to then like maybe be talking about an episode of something, then then maybe I'm just like, oh wait, whatever happened with that? Because is that like
Yeah.
retcon is like if like something happens and then it's just never brought up again, or is it just if something happens but then they rewrite it to not have ever happened?
Yes, or rewrite it in a way that they can kind of. A lot of times, what will happen when there's like a plot that kind of they need to rewrite it in order to move past something. But like, I think,
Okay.
I mean, there's some like in, for example, Doctor Who. Mostly, I think because it's just such a long show that probably the concept from the beginning, like when it came out in the 60s, had to be kind of modified later on. Maybe they need to stick with it, or they obviously needed to modify some things in order that there could be more doctors, basically,
Hmm.
depending on their. But I know that it does happen, or like, I mean, a reboot is basically a retcon. It's like if they reboot from the beginning and then, but I've also
Oh,
seen
okay.
in like, I think a really sort of non-sci-fi straightforward one is like the show Will and Grace. At the finale of Will and Grace, it was like 20 years into the future, maybe not 20 years, but it was in the future, and they had their kids in college. And I think they were kind of, I'm probably wrong, but it was like they were meeting like just like they did in college, their kids, Will and Grace's kids,
Oh,
um, or something like this. But in the like when they redid the show, it was like that was just a dream or something. It was taken away. It never happened. Um,
oh, okay. Okay, I got it.
So
Okay.
that kind of thing. So that's why there's episodes that we're going to talk about where this happens. But
Mhm.
it'd be like if in Stargate that in season 6 they kind of reversed something so that the ghoul will just never existed and something like this. So
Okay.
I think there's some definitely some episodes and um I have to say like the other reason I think it's interesting to talk about this is that some of them, specifically the time travel ones, tend to be episodes that aren't overly popular with people or that they, don't like it's not something so interesting. And I feel like a lot of sci-fi fans are really against this kind of time travel episodes. But for me, somehow I've always really liked them. And so I remember a long time ago when I read one of the first like, bad episodes of Stargate thing, and I saw one of like an episode I really liked on there, and I was very like, oh.
Yeah. I do have to say, like, I think for me with time travel stuff, it all depends, like, on how the overall episode is, like the story of it. Because, like, I don't think I've watched one like that has ever been something that I haven't liked in Stargate, but I have watched like time travel stuff and other things where I'm not too into it. So I think it just really depends on like if there's like an interesting story within it,
True, true.
that that keeps my interest. But yeah. Gosh, how many times have I said like already? I'm gonna get the hate comments.
It's okay, me too. It's no worries. Um, I think it's also important to note, like one of the most popular episodes of Stargate of all time is actually one of these kind of episodes. And it's like the quintessential being able to retcon your life, which is window of opportunity.
Yes, I love this episode. I
Yeah.
mean, I think a lot of people do though, right?
Yes, it's a fan favorite. Like I think most people in most lists of Stargate episodes, you'll often see either Wind of Opportunity or the Fifth Race, like really always close to the top, with maybe the Lost City up there. But I think in general, Wind of Opportunity is really a fan favorite, especially for the humorous episodes.
Yeah.
Um, but I tend to be a big fan of these kinds. And I thought, like personally, I know it's they call it even the Groundhog Day episode because of course it's a trope. It was in a movie. I am not as, I guess, versed in the breadth of shows as many people, so I haven't seen as much. So it's quite possible there's other TV shows that have done also this quote unquote Groundhog Day episode. But I feel like this one was really, really well done to integrate it into a plot and then also have the restarting be kind of a really interesting part of the episode in a way that drove the humor, but as well as the story. That was kind of I think something that made it very special.
Yes. Okay. Because exactly that reminded me of a thought is because how you said it's like a Groundhog Day kind of thing. When I was like a teenager, I think there was, or maybe young adult, like there was like the Groundhog Day movie. And then there was like other movies that were like teen movies that were, I can't think of the titles of them off the top of my head, but they were very much that idea of like, oh, you wake up, you have to restart your whole day all over again. And I freaking hated those. I
Really?
hated those. It drove me crazy. It gave me anxiety. I hated the idea of the episode starting over again. But honestly, that never even crossed my mind with this one at all. Like to
Really?
me, yeah, it's funny. It should have. But I think because I actually enjoyed this, I enjoyed Window Up Opportunity, and it was done in such a way that there was a lot of humor. And while there was seriousness to the nature of it, I mean, maybe I guess you could argue that maybe I enjoyed it because it was part of a series and not a movie. It wasn't a whole movie about everything
Yeah.
repeating and repeating and repeating. And but also there was like subtle changes every time things repeated, right? Like I feel like in some of these movies that I've seen when I was like a teen, literally it freaking repeats almost the exact same thing each time. with like subtle differences that it drives you crazy. And you're just like, for the love of God, just figure it out, please.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I think, yeah,
no, go on. What were we gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, I think too, like with this one, because so many people root on Sam and Jack, and
Yeah,
it's like kind of like a silly way to allow there to be a moment, not fully a moment that she knew was gonna happen, but like a moment to happen, um, where it's like everyone's like, yes, that just happened, like, and really there's no consequences to it. And then, and so it's just kind of like a funny kind of silly way to kind of almost allow fans to kind of experience something actually happening there.
yeah,
That I think that's also a reason maybe some people really like it too. Um, I mean, it's just all kind of like it's always funny, and I think like way back when we talked about this episode and like what was it like season 1 or something, is
hmm
it that we talked about this our podcast. I think one of the things we always mention is how funny it was that uh it was Jack and Teal'c that had to kind of like
yes,
always figure stuff out. And it was just kind of it allowed it to be very humorous. Whereas I'm not sure what it would have been like had it been like Sam and Daniel or something, like,
yeah,
and I mean, Jack is always just so dang funny and has like this amazing like way of the humor within each episode, even when things are serious, that I think it's so lovable that it's kind of like a whole episode full of that, which I think
yeah.
is why so many people like it.
Yeah, it was a humorous way also to kind of teach us things because we kind of experienced that episode from the perspective of Jack and Teal'c, and so we did get to learn a little bit of stuff in a funny way. And
Yeah.
I kind of like that in the real Groundhog Day, the movie, the whole point is the character is supposed to like learn a lesson. They're supposed to grow as a character. I think the guy is really selfish or something, and then he's trying to get with this
Yeah.
girl, and then by the end he has to behave a certain way in order to get with her, and then finally in the end he wakes up and they're still together or something. But in this case, it's almost the opposite because they learned the thing, but then towards the end they get more experimental with what they're doing, which I think is really, really
Yeah.
funny. And it's so funny because actually, I have to say, like the other day, I was practicing with Freya, and she was going into an axle, and I accidentally cut her off because I was going into something else. I mean, it happens all the time, but and then she's like, in the middle of my axle, and I love that the episode is just that universally understood.
You had a Stargate moment.
Yes, exactly. Those you need those Stargate moments in your life. So I think it's really interesting that you brought up how many, because I only really knew of Groundhog Day, but I also knew it was a trope. I knew it was a
Yeah.
trope that other things had done it, but I mean, I'm sure maybe I've also seen some of these teen movies,
Yeah,
but
I think there's
maybe
even
they just
one with like
block
Ashton
them out.
Kutcher too, I think. I think
Maybe,
there's so many. There's so many that have that same idea, just given a different name. And like you
yeah,
said, it usually follows that thing of maybe them being a crappy person and not appreciating their wife, and then like things change and it's just like weird. But yeah. So
yeah. But in this case, and it is so cool because at the same time, at the end of it, there was that really precious moment, the guy who was trying to go back in time, and it's almost like the episode is sort of an anti-retcon. You shouldn't change the past. What would you
yeah.
do? We always need to keep moving forward, which I think is a good Stargate message overall.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too it's like kind of special, like you said, how they're able to still have those like um heartbreaking moments in a sense, right? Because the guy
yeah,
just wanted to see his wife that passed, and then, Jack talks. I think that's the last time Jack kind of talks about his son. I think you had brought up that point last time, when he says he knew what it was like and how his son dying. And so, yeah, it kind of like perfectly takes things that could be actually really annoying to watch or sad to hear, and it kind of like somehow creates it in a way that it's like actually a really enjoyable episode. So, and you still get the impact of everything that happened without it just kind of going past you. Like if it's like silly the whole time, you might miss the important parts, but I don't feel like you do with how they have it done. So
Yeah, no, I think they do an excellent job always of balancing the silliness with the seriousness and vice versa. It's so on point.
yeah,
It's funny because the rest of the ones that I found, and I don't know if like this might not be a completely exhaustive list. I kind of had really racked my brain and then looked into it. They're all more of like a serious note. Interestingly, in season two, I think is the first real time travel episode. Somebody might correct me, but 1969, where they actually go back in time. But
yeah,
then they discover this sort of solar flares transport through the Stargate back in time, which
yeah,
leads to the next episode, which is kind of another working into working like redoing time because rather than repeating something, the episode actually starts in the future, 2010, and they use this thing again. I love this in Stargate that there's this always these things that you don't know if they're going to be important or not. And sometimes they never come back, and sometimes they do. And I thought with this 1969 that they brought this back in this particular episode,
yeah, yeah,
where they actually used this concept of knowing that we could send things back in time. But the episode was 2010. So that's the one where it starts in the future. They have this great ally, the Ashen, who, of course, Jack doesn't like because they don't have a sense of humor. It's a good advice. Don't trust anyone without a sense of humor. Um, and they turn out to basically be sterilizing the human race, and they realize they need to do something so that they never encounter or make this alliance with the Ashen. And so this is kind of an interesting take because you actually start in really what is an alternative timeline.
yeah,
Um, so yeah,
yeah. It's
that's
an
what I
intense
discover.
one, I think. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, it's like the opposite in intensity
yeah,
of Win of Opportunity in some ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always liked it though. I've always liked it. Like even like at the rewatch with my daughter, like it's interesting doing rewatches, like because it's like with myself when we first started this podcast, it was just the second time of me doing a rewatch of the show. And it had been like what 15 years prior that I had watched it or something like that. So like really like not much was remembered. And so now that I'm doing the rewatch with my daughter where, we've been watching these like and it's closer together, it's kind of interesting because I find that I have like a different feeling with certain episodes. Like certain episodes I might actually find kind of boring because like I already know like everything that's going to happen and I don't enjoy it as much, where other episodes I still enjoy just as much. And so like I think with this one, like I still like it. It's not necessarily one of my favorite ones, but I still do enjoy it. The people in it are kind of just so creepy. Like I always get irritated by them. And also, am I correct? And I forget what the name of the other episode is, but after this happens, then there's another episode where it's still connected to this one, right?
Yes,
They,
2000. I think it's 2001. It's like the later in the season or the following season where they do encounter people that are either somehow connected with the Ashen and they almost make an alliance with them before I think they discover, like Daniel discovers that what some of the words in their newspaper mean, and then they realize what they are, and so they nix it.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like it all kind of is connected. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this episode, in terms of what we're talking about today?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting way to do this kind of sort of create a bad situation and then rewrite it because they loop in already something that they had used before as kind of it was again as a simple plot device in I don't know like 1969 is again it's like a filler episode. I mean not like it wasn't part of the central plot. It was one of the episodes that were right before the end. Also a little bit kind of cute and cheeky. And but then there was this whole the solar flares affecting the time of the wormhole. And I thought it was interesting that they brought that back in such a serious way and such a plot important way in this. And it was kind of an interesting approach because you start and everything is bad. And you know it, like, of course, watching it, you know it's gonna get better by the end. But it's kind of like when if you've ever had those dreams where you wake up and it's the future and you or like much later and you go, oh, where did all the time go? I don't know if you've ever had this nightmares, but I've had this where you're like in a dream and it's somehow 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future. And like,
Oh, wow. No, I
yeah.
haven't had that.
And then you wake up and you go, oh, great, it's still, like 2026 or something. But
Yeah.
in this case, it's sort of the future and it's quite bad. And you have the same kind of, oh, is this just a dream? Is this real? Can it really be like this kind of thing? And then to change it like the way they changed it using something from a previous season, I think I love these touches in Stargate when they take things that I don't know if they ever imagined to use it again. It'd be interesting
Yeah.
to hear from like
Yeah.
writers about this and then bring it back in such a integral way.
Do you notice though, like one thing I noticed with this episode in particular, because of like the whole reasoning behind it, I feel like whenever there's episodes that they know they're going to be kind of, making it that then like it somehow doesn't happen, like how you says they send the letter, it ends up shifting what they do. Um, they always have it where someone like main people get killed easily. Like kind of like
True.
what was it? The thing with the was it oh what was it? Um Kind of similar to like, I mean, not exactly similar because it's not involving like a timeline thing, but like with the Knox episode, it's like, they have it, they're easily shot and killed or like injured. But because they're going to be healed by the Knox, like that's why that happens. But then there's so many times that they probably should have been shot and killed that somehow they miraculously like run slightly to the left so then they don't don't get hit by a bullet or staff weapon of some sort or zat gun or whatever it is. And like so it's like that's one thing I noticed with things like this is like they easily get killed, like all of them got shot and killed at the end, right? Like until they were able to toss the letter in, and like at least that's what it seemed like to me. Maybe that wasn't the case, but they make you wonder. And so I don't know, like, I don't know how I feel about that because it's like, obviously you don't want bad things to happen to them, but there's like these moments where it almost doesn't make sense how they escape it. And it's kind of always alluded like, oh, that's just SG1. SG1 does the impossible. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
No, that's such a good observation, actually. Really, no, and I think same probably in parallel realities. They're always getting killed in a reality.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's like the kind of thing I never notice. There's this show I also watch called Spartacus, and in I think the third season or something, or fourth season of the original. I mean, of course, I'm a big fan of the first couple seasons. But there's a point where they're not soldiers, right? They're gladiators, they're very strong. And so it does make sense that some of these trained gladiators can, defeat Roman soldiers, especially,
Hmm.
I mean, considering what level of the soldiers are, it's really relatively, in this case of what you're talking about, realistic in the beginning. But then in the later seasons, even just people that join them, like slaves that they freed that were not gladiators, are somehow able to fight the Romans. And I never noticed this, but like Martin noticed it and he'll say, how can they just defeat the Romans so easily? But I don't notice it. It's one of those things I
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
horrible with noticing these kinds of things, but it's so true. You're right. They're always in episodes where it doesn't matter if they live or die. They're always just,
It's like, kill them now.
yeah, yeah, which is Yeah, so that's a very good observation, actually. Which is funny because the next one would be Mobius, and this is one at the end of season 8 there was this episode of Mobius, and this is one I think that is kind of considered, a lot of people consider it an unpopular episode, but I really liked it. But it's also one where the alternate versions of them die, right?
Mm. Okay.
Um,
Hold on. What do you care to remind me what this one is because I'm having a brain fart.
okay, no, wait. Mobius was the end of season 8. So
Okay.
remember at the end of season 8, there was first this episode where they kind of tied all of the storylines up called threads. I think where they kind of tied up the Jaffa storyline and they tied up sort of Sam's circumstances, and they tied up the Goa'uld even, and it was very conclusive. And then there was this two-part season finale at the end of season 8 where they look at a picture, or what is it they're looking at? And I saw ZPM. Maybe it was, oh no, no. Of course it wasn't a picture. It was a like a drawing or something. And they see a ZPM, what they think is a ZPM. And they decide to go back, use this time machine that they had found to go back to ancient Egypt to get the ZPM. And something happens, there's a revolt, and that team of SG-1 gets stuck there. And so actually then they
Oh,
go back
is
and rescue themselves, because in the new timeline they have completely different like lives, but the original team leaves a tape. So
yeah. Okay, that's coming back to me. And that also is the one with the very nerdy Carter and
yes.
Daniel, right? Yeah. So people didn't like that one. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess it's considered an unpopular episode, at least as far as I know.
Really?
But I
You
like
know,
that episode.
what I find kind of interesting just by sometimes reading people's comments of, on some of these fan pages where people will say their thoughts about episodes or characters that they love or don't love, is I feel like you have a percentage of Stargate fans that love the silly and obnoxious and things like that within storylines. And then you have other percentage of Stargate fans that almost fit less of being into the humor of things.
Yeah.
Which the reason I'm laughing is because I'm thinking of how you were just saying how like Jack O'Neill says about humor, and so it's just I don't know. I was kind of
Yeah. Oh
combining the
no.
two thoughts. um, and I'm not trying to insult anyone. Everyone has every right to enjoy what they enjoy, but I just find it interesting that it seems like you have people that love the silly side of things, which I personally do. And so like they love like seeing like Carter like be kind of like silly and nerdy. It's like I
Yeah.
personally loved that in this
Me too.
episode. And then other people that maybe aren't quite into that and they just don't get the point of like why any of that is shown.
Yeah.
Um, kind of similar to how um well, I won't get into it because it will go into a different topic, but just a different character I thought of that some people seem to love and some people seem to not love quite as much. But with this episode, I think
Which
there was
character?
definite.
It's gonna kill me if you don't tell me which character.
So I find it always interesting how some people don't like Vala.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like I love Vala like so much, and like I love that character so much, and I'm always surprised when people says, "Oh yeah, I don't really like her." Like, you know, and so I just always find that interesting, and I feel like I wonder if it's because sometimes they're just not into that kind of humor. Because I feel like she was kind of a humorous character,
Yeah.
that purposely was supposed to kind of be annoying at times. And then like just like the interactions between her and Daniel, I just loved so much. So I was always like really surprised when people say, "Oh, I couldn't stand that character," which
Yeah.
I don't know if that's common, but um,
Yeah, it's
I,
interesting. Like
yeah.
I love Vala too. I never really got the ship between them, because I think to me it was so much so similar to like the Jack and Daniel banter between them. In a way, it
Mm-hmm.
was very siblingy and friendly rather than romantic. But I love the character of Vala, and I thought that was, I mean, to me that was a fun.
Actually, I had a thought actually just now, and I know that that's not what we're talking about, but with that, I kind of wonder if it was intentionally kind of following what was actually quite popular in teen movies, maybe at the time.
Hmm.
Because in teen movies, a lot of times they have the two love interests,
Hmm.
and there's always someone that you wouldn't imagine being with the other. Maybe it's like a stupid thing of like, oh, there's like the high school quarterback and then like the nerdy girl and then or like
Ah,
or the girl
yeah.
that's like a rebel and then the nerdy boy, and like they'll have it be like a love interest that somehow they end up liking each other, but initially they hate each other, and so there's a lot of like banter back and forth, and then eventually there's moments where they suddenly have all these feelings for each other, and so it kind of follows that in a weird Stargate kind of way that I wonder,
True.
maybe I don't know if that was the intention, but it kind of fits kind of a vibe that I think is quite popular in those kinds of movies that people enjoy watching. So, um,
That's very true. That's very
you
true.
know, it could be of that time too that that came out. So I don't know. It was just
Good,
a thought.
good point. Yeah. But yeah, no, I like Vala. I don't I actually
Yeah,
I like all the characters that were introduced that people sometimes are
same,
divided on because they're not the originals.
same.
I love them all. There's
Yeah, yeah,
so they're also so very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
But with this, so Mobius part one, and was it? It was a two part one and part
It's a
two.
two-parter, yeah.
Um, was there things that you liked about it and didn't like? Like for myself, I think there was elements of that timeline. I don't know if this happens to you sometimes when you watch things like this that interfere with things that have happened or haven't happened. Sometimes it gives me the ick. Like I don't like, um when certain things have never happened, or like even just them like being stranded and not being able to leave. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh, like I don't like this, and it kind
Oh
of gives me
yeah,
an
yeah.
icky feeling. But like I think the reason I do actually like this episode is solely because of there being the nerdy Carter. Like I just
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
love that character so much, and it's just like hilarious, like her and Daniel both like as their nerdy versions of themselves. Like, I think that's why I love this episode.
I
If that
also
wasn't
love that
there, I don't know if I would.
yeah, true, true. Good point. And I love that they also make fun of the pilot with her repeating that one line
Yes.
that she says that they actually took out of the pilot. I think who would say that? And I was like, okay, this is yeah, they're so
Yeah.
self-aware, right?
Yeah.
But I think I have to correct something that I said at the beginning, which was that they never retcon anything because they do. And it occurred to me now at the end of this episode, in the main storyline at the end of Threads, there are no fish in O'Neill's pond. And at the end of the episode here, there are fish in his pond. So
Oh
that
my
was
God.
retcon.
Oh
They
my God.
retconned the fish. And that
I
is so
wouldn't have
perfect.
noticed that.
That's so perfect. And now I feel really bad because in the beginning of this episode, I'm going to be talking about how they never retcon anything, and somebody's going to be watching this and like, no, actually, there's no fish in the pond in the beginning. Of course, you idiot. Like, yeah.
That is an impressive thing to remember, though, I do have to say.
Everyone will remember it because it's such there are no fish in my pond. And then at the end of the Mobius, they're all fishing because, of course, this is a beautiful ending. They go fishing, and what happens? There is fish in the pond.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah. Um, but it's interesting because before we get into some of the Atlantis ones, because it was interesting, I wasn't expecting to, for some reason, when I was thinking about this, I had thought only SG-1 because I only have seen it. I have to like confess, I only have seen Atlantis the one time and then the one time we watched through. So a lot of the episodes I really need to rewatch it again. They're not fresh in my mind, but also I really need to rewatch it again to kind of internalize more of that. But there's actually 2 from Atlantis we can talk about that do it in a very different way. Um, But the final episode of Stargate season 10, which is interesting because, okay, also the end of Stargate season 8 was many considered to be, it was thought of to be an ending. And I think it was one of those circumstances where they also weren't sure if they were going to get renewed. And I'm sure somebody
Hmm.
will correct me that this isn't, but it was more of a final episode, especially since many of the cast were changing. And they did this. And at the end of season 8 or 10, which is like the complete series end, they did something very, very similar in that they something went forward and then they reversed it. Um, which would be when they got the Asgard core and then they almost were hit with a blast and they stopped time and then lived on the ship for 50 years. And then everybody but Teal'c was reversed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I haven't rewatched this one again yet. I haven't obviously gotten to that part with watching it with Taylor, but this one, like, I mean, it's definitely like I can't say it's one I don't like. I guess I just don't like the concept. It just makes me feel bad. I don't like seeing all of them get older. I don't like the idea of them all being stuck on a ship. I don't like the idea that Teal'c actually ends up going back being older than he was before, with the little streak in his hair and like
Which is
like
totally unrealistic. He would not have even gotten one of those streaks, let's be real.
but like it's like if I'm trying to just like think of it now, like it's still like an interesting episode, but it's just like and like when I say things like don't make me feel good, like I think like a lot of that is obviously purposefully intentional for the viewer to
Yes.
feel like it's not me saying, oh, that episode sucks. That's not what I mean by that. I just mean like emotionally, like I feel a lot when I watch episodes. And so like I imagine myself in that situation and how like panicked I would feel, I
Yep.
think. And like then it's like you can feel that, which is probably the intention, you know. Um, and there are like some cool things that I think happen and you know seeing like Carter play the cello and
Yeah.
things like that uh, but but yeah, I mean storyline wise, like was it necessary to have that there? I mean, not really, right?
Yeah, I
Like I
mean,
don't know.
it wasn't, but it's interesting because neither was in a way, or I mean, they did get the ZPM though. So in Mobius, it actually was, but I guess in this one they got the Asgard core. Like they
Yeah.
so in the end they achieved something in both. But I think, I mean, it's funny that they both end that way. But I totally know what you mean because I also like I feel the same, and it does. It's sort of in a way re-evoking the Torments of Tantalus episode where he's trapped where you know where Ernest is trapped and he has all this information and
Oh,
everything at his
yeah.
fingertips, but can do nothing about it. And then at the end, it just sinks anyways. At least this time they finally, you know, get
Yeah.
something. But it does. It sounds like you have all this time and basically everything at your disposal, but you can't do anything with it. It sounds,
Yeah.
yeah, it's terrifying. And I like I feel also that too, that it's sort of you feel very depressed at the end and you're because they have everything. They have all this knowledge. They could use this to do anything, but they can't use it. And who knows what like so yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of the
Yeah. In a weird way, it's almost like a foretelling of, I know this is going to probably sound all backwards, but it's almost like a foretelling of Stargate universe because it's
right.
like, you know, stuck on a ship. There's like knowledge here that you don't quite understand. Like,
And they can't do anything with it, right? Yes.
yeah,
I mean
yeah,
to affect to impact Earth or I mean, yes, it is true. You're right. It is very much a little bit foreshadowing there. Um,
yeah.
yeah, which is interesting. And
Do
then
you
of course,
know what people thought of this episode? Was this one that people enjoyed or didn't enjoy, or it was just kind of one of the episodes that had mixed reviews?
you know what's interesting because For myself, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like I ever encountered much information either way necessarily. Maybe it was kind of more of a I know there were some people that were really into Daniel and Vala as a couple that were very into this episode.
Mhm.
Um, I would say myself is kind of it. I think it's one of those episodes. It's very interesting to watch the first time you watch it, but when I watched it again, just because when you kind of already know what's going to happen, it's less. It has a little bit somehow impacted me a little bit less. That I was a little bit more lukewarm on it.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, there's also some cute moments in it, so I can see also as for fan service and things,
Yeah.
to watch that as your final um episode is also kind of fun. But I don't know. It never really stuck out to me as a terrible episode or one that I went, oh wow, I absolutely love this. And I can't remember reading it anywhere that people, so maybe people can tell us in the comments if this is something like fan wise or personally, how you feel about this episode. Because yeah, I have to admit I haven't heard as much
Yeah.
reception
Because
wise
I'm a
about it.
dork. Yeah, I wasn't thinking the fact that this was the last episode of season 10.
Mhm.
Like, so I think that's also why I didn't I don't know, something about it I think like because of that also kind of hit me the wrong way. That's kind of coming
Yeah,
back to me like when I had first like done the first rewatch. Like I'm just like, okay, I do remember telling you that I wasn't too like fond of
yeah.
it. I think if this was something that was there and then there was like maybe one episode, because there wasn't episodes after that, right? This was the actual final one.
Yes, there was only the movies came after it,
Yeah.
but then this was the final like
Which I've never been
serial.
a fan of the movies.
Yeah,
Like I enjoy them, but I don't know, I've just always preferred watching it as a series. But like they're okay, I guess. I lose interest. Like not interest, I lose focus for some reason when I'm watching the movies.
I think
Um
it's paced so differently, which
yeah.
is weird.
Yeah.
It's maybe it's psychological because of course there's two-parter episodes, which is the
Yeah.
same length as the film, but somehow,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
exactly. And I can watch sometimes like a million episodes, right? And like
yeah,
enjoy it. So I don't know what it is, but for some reason, yeah, I've just like I remember in the rewatch of everything, and even when I didn't really remember the movies, I think some of the movies I hadn't actually ever seen. When I
oh, okay,
watched it, like it was hard for me to get into. It felt different than the series. But yeah, I think with this one too, like I think that's also why initially I wasn't too into it as well, is just because of it being the final episode. Um,
yeah,
I just like felt like it could have maybe been something different. I don't know.
yeah. No, that I get. I in
But then
that sense,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was gonna say in that sense it's kind of funny because in both they really sort of had these wrap up episodes at the end, and then this like episode that did something weird with time to really conclude everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you think about anything with any series, even if it's not Stargate, I think having a final episode for anything when you know it's going to be the final episode is probably really, really difficult to do because what do you end
oh
it
yeah,
on? You know? And then when people don't know that their series is going to be canceled and then you're just left on like a cliffhanger, that also sucks. So it's just kind of like probably with any show, the final episode is probably never going to be something that people are going to enjoy watching because also psychologically, you know, shit, this is
yeah,
the
that's
last
it.
episode. Like if you do know, like, and if you don't know, you're like,
Yeah,
excited for what's going to happen next, right?
yep,
And then there is no next, and then it just sucks. So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. But it's funny because with the movies, by the way, they did the same thing. The first Stargate movie closes up the Ori arc, and the second one is the time travel with Mitchell, right? And then Ball takes power, and then by the end of that movie, they through I think Mitchell and like his grandpa, right, is the captain of a ship,
Yeah.
and then they manage to take So basically, that movie is about Ball, and I feel like by the end of it, they do kill Ball, but I don't feel like, I mean, I think you could also interpret that there were so many Ball clones, it might not have been the real Ball. I mean,
Yeah, it was kind of left like you don't really know. Um, I honestly don't fully remember that movie, to be honest. When you started mentioning it, I do have like little clips here and there that kind of come back to my mind. So I know which one you're talking about. But yeah, I've only seen that the one time, so I haven't seen it now in a little while. So
I mean, it's funny because sometimes I feel like these episodes that they do at the end, where then they go back, there's always some aspect of fan service, and not in a bad way, just like because in the first one you have Carter and O'Neill, and they're kind of getting together at the end of Mobius with their alternate selves in the back of the thing, um, and then you have uh in Unending, Vala and Daniel eventually getting
yeah.
together, never getting together. But in Continuum, you have Vala and Ball,
Oh my gosh. I forgot about that.
and you get to see Vala as Katesh, which is cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That was cool. Yeah.
and yeah, you get Vala and Ball.
So it's always like um a love thing in a sense. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, so that's the conclusion. They always want to ship somebody. So secretly, the producers are just really big shippers at heart, and all of those episodes were also warming their inner shipper. I don't know.
Warming their inner shipper.
But yeah, so it's funny because then if we move to Atlantis, there were two episodes that I found. Maybe there are more. I don't know, but the two that I found that kind of do something similar are Before I Sleep and The Last Man. And Before I Sleep, that was one of the earlier episodes, correct? It was maybe even season one. Um, but this was
Oh,
the
I'm not
episode
sure.
where they find somebody frozen. It is, yes, season one.
Hmm.
Um, but towards the end. So I wasn't sure it was like end of season one, beginning of season two, but it's very early on because right, they find this frozen woman, um, and they think she's an ancient, but it turns out to be Weir, right?
Yeah.
And it was sort of from the original, like different timeline expedition, and everything went wrong. And so she went back and she went into stasis, and every 3,000 years did something with the ZPMs. Um, and then I think by the end, then the whole concept is she tells them where you can find more ZPMs. But this was also an interesting way to do it, right?
Yeah. You know what's funny is as you're talking about it, what came to mind was if you think about it in a weird way, it's kind of like if you like with the movie Titanic, how like there's the older lady that's talking back about her story and what happened. It's kind of like that similar concept, even though I mean, obviously Titanic and Stargate are two very different things, but like it kind of reminds me of that because it's like the older like version of Weir and then like she's talking back about like
Yes.
what happened, right?
Yes.
Right? I think she's like
Yes.
explaining the
At
whole
the
story, and then you
end.
get to kind of see back to that, which I think is kind of a cool way um to kind of talk a little bit more about the people that were there before,
Yes.
right? And kind of learn a little bit about that
Yes,
in kind of a
absolutely.
unique way. So I actually liked it.
Me too. Me too.
I thought it was a creative way of teaching about that instead of it just being something where someone reads about it somewhere and then explains it, that kind of thing. And interesting to think like the concept of that actually like happening of it not working out in the way that they thought everything worked out, and then you know we're basically kind of helps everyone without
Yes.
her or anyone actually knowing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. No, I really, this one I really enjoyed, and I thought it was kind of a fresh, I mean, it probably, again, I don't watch much, so it's probably a trope. But it was kind of a cool way to for them to use this to give us knowledge and then also propel things a little bit forward because then at the end, yeah, they could find the things. And
Yeah.
so it did advance things a little bit while at the same time allowing us to learn a little something, which and yet even though it's funny because usually whenever there's episodes where like they don't go off world, especially early on, I'd be like, oh, bummer. It's gonna be but this one was one where I was like, okay, this turned out really, and I feel like Atlantis has done a really good job of that. Um,
Yeah.
because there's also I felt like at some point I am not always wanting lockdown episodes because I want to see them go into the world. And there was this one lockdown episode where everybody was stuck in little like duos or trios. And it's one of my favorite episodes of Atlantis
Yeah.
because of how creatively they did this. And so this is one
Yeah.
of those circumstances where normally I'd be like, oh, bummer, they're not going to go off world this one. But it's like so well done. And you
Yeah, and you get to enjoy the character dynamics of certain characters that maybe always wouldn't be grouped up together.
exactly, yeah.
And so I think that's why that one was really cool. I forget the name of that one, but
Yeah. But it's the same with
yeah.
this one. Like I felt like it was just such a cool circumstance. And then but yet you got to learn something. But yet there's also, again, it's very similar to how in Window of Opportunity is like they were learning something, but there was also this problem. And then through going through the plot to kind of solve the big problem, you also learned the other things. And so to me, this
Yeah.
one was kind of, in that sense, I felt it was really well done. And
Yeah.
Um, but interestingly, I think they did the opposite in their other episode like that, which was The Last Man, where it is several thousand years in the future rather than
Yeah.
someone having been 10,000 years in the past. Um, this one is not quite as clear in my mind because I I only watched it through once, and it was kind of one of the last episodes, I believe. So as far as I know, this
Yeah.
is the one where Shepard is in the future after something happens and he finds himself trapped in the future and is like controlled by uh is it controlled by Michael or something? It's like a Wraith circumstance, something like this. It's either
Oh,
Michael or the Wraith. Um
yeah. Who was wait. I was just quickly trying to read over the plot. I'm not sure. Um Yeah, it says they wait for their Janai contact where he claims to have information regarding Taylor Amagan, who was kidnapped by Michael.
yes, okay.
Oh, okay. So this is the after the episode after she'd been kidnapped.
It's sort of this
Um,
two-parter that I think kind of
yeah,
resolves the situation, but it starts with Shepard being in the future and then I think
yeah,
they are able to use this to resolve it. But and then there's the whole like it's like McKay hologram, right?
yeah,
In the episode. So it's kind of again is one of those situations. I think the McKay hologram adds a lot of like really fun and cute dialogue between
yeah,
Shepard and hologram McKay and
yeah. I
so
liked that part to it. I really
yeah,
did.
me
Like I
too.
thought
Me
it
too.
was amusing to have McKay as a hologram. And I think like him and Shepard's dynamic is just always kind of funny. And so, yeah, I did like that. Was this the same one when they were, I think when McKay kind of tells Shepard of things that have happened? And was this the one that it showed McKay with Keller and how they had become like a couple and then she had gotten sick and then later dies
I
and he's
believe
telling her about that?
I feel like I know there's something I don't know about the sickness and dying, but I know that there is something in this episode where you find out they were dating um
Yeah,
in this one.
I think that's when like he also talks about her getting sick and then like she gets something where then she later dies. So, um again, it's bringing in things with like couples.
Yes, totally. You're right. Oh my God, were there any couple things in the Weir one? I don't think so, but
I
that
mean, didn't Weir like the older version of Weir? She was with the guy from the other uh ancient, right?
oh yeah, actually, you're
The
right.
guy, like the guy that
You're
kind of
right.
helped her be able to freeze or
Yes,
whatever.
you're right. So there was. I mean, it wasn't like a classic her shipping her with someone, but you're right. There was totally someone
Yeah.
she was with. So yeah, maybe. But yeah, I thought this for something this episode like usually this episode's for somebody who wakes up in the future and everything is gone or like like even zombie movies, it always freaks me out. It's one of the darkest, I think, circumstances
Yeah.
in film or TV shows.
Yeah.
But I love in this case how much I didn't have any like of course you have a feeling of oh my God, what's gonna happen? But I didn't have that same ick. I think
Yeah.
partially
I
because of the
agree.
characterization and the way that Rodney McKay was sort of
Yeah.
interacting with Shepard and helping the situation and actually was really, really well done. So I enjoyed it.
I think that's something that Stargate is so great with is like having character dynamics between certain characters that it can take something serious and you still understand the implications of whatever is going on, but you're
Exactly.
still able to feel a lightness to the episode based off of how those characters interact. And I think like they do it so well with I would say all of the characters, but I
Yes,
think
totally.
the ones that I really think of like like SG1 you always think of whenever Jack interacts like with anyone, it's always amusing even in like super serious stuff. And so I kind of feel like Shepard has a similar vibe with Jack in a sense, like not fully, but kind of like I know he's a different character, but he kind of has a similar vibe to that
Yes.
him and McKay and how they interact is like kind of,
Yeah.
reminds me of whenever Jack is with a character that he kind of gets irritated by, but it's always funny.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah. No, no, I think they did this so well. And I think it's one of those things that just goes to show how much the character dynamics makes and the writing
Yeah.
makes something that usually, I mean, I think we've mentioned several things in this podcast that are things that we don't necessarily always like in every show or every movie, this kind of this specific plot or this plot device, but somehow Stargate makes those things work, I think because of the rich characters and rich writing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I guess like kind of like a an ending point, unless there's anything else you wanted to say about those final two that we were talking about that I was just kind of thinking of in terms of what we were talking about today is how it kind of makes me excited and nervous and whatever to kind of think of the new series. And
yes.
I'm really so curious of what me and you will be talking about when that new
Yes.
series comes on and, how that's going to be with character dynamics and those kind of things. Cause I think that takes time to have those types of things grow with characters. And so it'll be really fascinating to see how they will do that, with
Yes,
giving such a
totally.
limited amount of episodes, although the episodes will probably be longer. Um, I'm excited. I'm like really
Me
excited
too.
for it. I'm
Me
sure
too.
it will be. I really do think it will be great. So I'm not saying that like in a negative sense by any means. It kind of irritates me when I see comments where people are just assuming negativity and just assuming, oh yeah, like, well, it's not going to be nothing like this, blah blah blah, and they just kind of crap talk it, like. I think it's going to be really good.
Me
I
too.
think it'll probably be different, but it's made me kind of think about that just as talking about this, like, oh, I wonder how that's going to be.
Yes. Yes, totally. Totally. So yeah. So yeah. And everybody tell us, one, did we miss anything? Because I don't know if the list was overly exhaustive. I'm sure that I'm missing some. Um, but if there's some also little things you think were cool or what you thought of some of these episodes or how you feel in these kind of restarting episodes in general. If there's anything I missed that was retconned, um, because I obviously missed the fish thing in the beginning. So yeah, definitely talk to us down below.